The first time Clayton saw her, she was standing under the oak tree out by the old Miller Ranch, where the dirt road split in two and the wind carried dust like secrets. He thought she was a trick of the sun, maybe some fancy tech illusion the city folk brought to mess with rural minds. But when she turned and looked at him, big eyes like polished sapphires and skin the color of twilight, he knew she was real. And she was lost. He was used to lost things, calves that wandered past the fence line, city girls chasing cowboy dreams, stray thoughts that never quite landed. But this blue-skinned, ethereal woman in a leather-looking outfit that didn't belong to any tribe he knew? This was new. Clayton tipped his hat. "You all right, miss?" Her voice was like rain on dry tin. Soft. Sad. "I do not know where I am." He didn't either, for a second. She said her name was Leary, and her ship had crash-landed somewhere over the Mojave. She walked for days before finding this small Texas town. Said she didn't mean to come to Earth at all. Said she was just tired. She didn't say much else, not at first. But she took to the land like she'd been born to it. Helped Clayton repair a broken fence without being asked, and when his horse bucked through a shoe, she had it fixed faster than the blacksmith in town. Her fingers glowed faintly when she worked, like heat lightning dancing over her knuckles. The folks in town gawked. Some called her a demon. Others prayed. But she didn't fight didn't explain herself. Just kept helping out around the ranch, quiet and steady, like a ghost that fixed everything it haunted. One evening, Clayton found her staring at the sky. "You miss it?" he asked. She didn't turn. "He died up there." Clayton didn't ask who. Didn't have to. He watched her for a long moment, then said, "You don't have to go back. Ain't nothing says you can't start over." She looked at him then. Really looked. And something shifted. Weeks passed. Then months. The ranch, which had always felt too big for just Clayton, started to feel full. She made the barn her own. Modified tools. Even crafted little floating orbs that kept the cattle from wandering off. The horses didn't spook around her anymore. They came to her like she was one of their own. But even with all that peace, something brewed under the surface. A tension neither of them talked about. He'd catch her watching him when she thought he wasn't looking. And he stopped pretending he didn't care. It wasn't just about her beauty. It was the way she moved, like everything mattered. Like every nail she hammered into a fence post had a story behind it. One stormy night, the wind howling like a chorus of banshees, Leary came into the house soaked through. The lights flickered. Power was out. Clayton handed her a towel. "You're shivering," he said. "I'm not cold," she replied. But her voice cracked. That night, in the flickering candlelight, she told him about her husband. About the war that took him. About the mission she was never meant to complete, the escape pod she stole, and the baby they'd never have. She didn't cry. Her kind didn't shed tears. But Clayton felt every ounce of her grief like it was his own. "I keep seeing him," she whispered. "Every night. Telling me to move on. I don't know how." Clayton didn't say anything. He just pulled her into his arms. And she didn't pull away. Come spring, everything changed. The fields were greener than they'd been in years. Calves were born strong and stubborn. And Leary, she glowed. Not the usual faint shimmer in her skin, but something deeper. Something alive. "I need to tell you something," she said one morning, hands trembling. Clayton didn't need her to say it. He already knew. "I didn't think it was possible," she said. "Our species aren't supposed to be compatible." "Guess no one told us that," he replied with a soft smile. The baby wasn't just a miracle. It was something more. Proof of healing. Of second chances. But not everyone saw it that way. One night, a pickup pulled up to the ranch. 3 men stepped out, locals. The kind that wore patriotism like armor and feared what they didn't understand. "You got something not natural here, Clayton," one of them said. "And now it's breedin'." Clayton stood on his porch, rifle in hand. "You get off my land. Now." They spat. Threatened. But they left. For now. Leary stood behind him, quiet. But that night, she placed her hand on her belly and whispered words in a language he didn't know. Clayton asked what she said. I told our child not to fear. That love is the strongest shield. He believed her. And then came the flash in the sky. Bright. Loud. Like a second sun bursting open. She went still. Eyes wide. They've found me. Who? He asked. My people. And just like that, the world he'd built with her teetered on the edge of something he didn't understand. They wouldn't come in peace. Lyri said as much. Her escape, her pregnancy, it would be seen as a betrayal. A contamination of the bloodline. They will take me, she said. And they will not be gentle. Clayton looked at her, then at the sky, then back at her belly. Then we don't let em. She stared at him like he was insane. You would fight them? He nodded. For you? For our child? Hell yes. She smiled, and for the first time in months, it wasn't tinged with sorrow. The night stretched long. Stars winked out, one by one, as if the heavens were holding their breath. And in that silence, Lyri began to prepare. She wasn't just a refugee. She'd been a warrior once. She buried that part of herself deep, but now, it rose. Clayton helped however he could. Modified the barn. Reinforced the walls. They weren't ready for a war, but they weren't planning to run, either. He didn't know what was coming. But he knew one thing. They were going to fight. Together. For the life they'd built. For the family they'd become. And for the future growing quietly beneath Lyri's glowing skin. The silence before dawn wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that settled over the land when everything knew danger was coming. The birds didn't sing. The cattle didn't stir. Even the wind held its breath. Clayton sat on the porch, shotgun across his lap. Not because it would matter against what was coming, but because it was all he knew. He'd spent his life protecting what was his with the tools he had. And now, the woman he loved and the unborn child they'd created were the most important things in the world. Lyri stood behind him, dressed in the kind of armor that shimmered like moonlight but felt solid as steel. Her expression was calm, but her eyes betrayed her. They flicked to the treetops, to the clouds, to the far-off sky where something unnatural stirred. They will not talk first, she said. They will observe. Calculate. Decide. And then? Clayton asked. They'll try to remove me. He looked up at her. You sure about that? I'm sure. He nodded slowly. Then let's make sure they regret trying. The first craft didn't land. It just hovered, silent and seamless, above the tree line at the far end of the property. A metallic glimmer that shimmered like water, perfectly still in the morning light. Lyri walked out to meet it, a blue figure in the middle of the pasture. Clayton wanted to stop her, but he knew she had to do it alone. A figure descended, not in a beam or a flash, but as if it had always been there. Tall, thin, and cloaked in flowing black robes. It didn't walk so much as glide. The creature didn't speak in words. Instead, Lyri's face twisted, her eyes narrowing as it pushed into her thoughts. No, she said aloud. I won't go with you. Clayton couldn't hear the reply, but Lyri stepped back, shaking. You don't get to decide that anymore, she said. Then she turned and walked away. That night, they knew it wasn't over. The ship was still there. Watching. Waiting. They'll send the hunters next, Lyri whispered as they sat in bed. They don't believe in diplomacy when it comes to traitors. You're not a traitor, Clayton said. In their eyes, I abandoned my station. My people. My genetics. I broke laws that aren't just written in code, they're written in our biology. And you'd do it again? She turned to him, her face soft in the lantern light. 1,000 times. He kissed her forehead. Then we're not done yet. Preparations began in earnest. Lyri constructed energy barriers around the ranch, ancient tech from her world adapted to run off solar cells and a jerry-rigged tractor battery. Clayton didn't understand half of what she was doing, but he helped all the same, holding wires, moving panels, watching as glowing glyphs lit up in midair. She trained him too. Showed him how to move, where to aim, how to counter a cloaked enemy. Her hands were steady as she corrected his stance. This won't stop them forever, she said. But it'll slow them down. That night, she doubled over while brushing her hair. Clayton rushed to her side. "Lyri, what's wrong?" "It's the baby," she whispered. "She's strong. She's pushing." "Pushing what?" "My limits." The pregnancy wasn't just progressing, it was accelerating. Her species gestation, combined with human DNA, was unpredictable. Every doctor in town had refused to see her. So she bore it alone, except for Clayton. He never left her side. The first real attack came 3 nights later. A ripple in the fence. Then silence. Then the lights went out. Clayton grabbed the shotgun. Useless, maybe, but it made him feel like he could still do something. Lyri moved with practiced precision. Her skin shimmered, symbols glowing faintly across her arms as she raised her hands. A flash of light burst from her palms, revealing figures tall, armored, and faceless slipping through the shadows. They moved like ghosts. But Lyri moved faster. Clayton watched her fight, if you could call it that. It was like watching a storm dance. She flowed, struck, disappeared, and reappeared like lightning. The air crackled around her. He fired once. A hunter went down. His chest lit up and his body vanished into vapor. Lyri turned to him. "Aim for the chest. Right below the left shoulder." They held the line. Together. Until morning. The ship was gone. For now. But the land bore scars. Burn marks in the grass. Trees split down the middle. A fence collapsed inwards like something had folded it with invisible hands. Lyri stood in the field, hands on her belly, breathing hard. "They won't stop," she said. "I know. I can't keep fighting like this. Not with her growing so fast. We'll think of something." They drove into town. For the first time in weeks, they risked it. The stares were worse than before. The whispers louder. But one voice cut through it all. "You're the reason the sky lit up like that, ain't you?" It was Sheriff Daniels. Old, grizzled, but not stupid. Clayton nodded. "They're after her. And they won't stop." The sheriff looked at Lyri for a long time. Then, to their surprise, he said, "Tell me what you need." Lyri blinked. "Why?" "Because you didn't bring war." They did. "And no one attacks my town without a damn fight." That night, they weren't alone. People came. Mechanics. Farmers. Hunters. Even the preacher. All of them carrying tools, weapons, or just sheer stubborn will. The ranch became a fortress. Makeshift, sure. But it was alive with purpose. Lyri's contractions started early one morning. She collapsed in the barn, and Clayton caught her just in time. "It's happening," she gasped. "She's coming. But the next wave. I know. She's not waiting." The sky lit up again. Another ship. Larger. Angrier. Lyri screamed. And from the depths of the sky, a voice echoed across the valley. "Return the hybrid. Or burn." Clayton stood in the doorway of the barn, rifle in hand, as neighbors gathered behind him. "We ain't giving her up." There was no reply. Just the sound of something massive descending. Lyri cried out again, this time in agony and defiance. And the child began to arrive. A baby born between worlds. As war arrived on their doorstep. The sky turned blood red as the second ship pierced the clouds, casting a shadow over the land so deep it made noon feel like midnight. It wasn't just a ship. It was a statement. A threat written in fire and steel. Inside the barn, Lyri's cries echoed off the wooden beams as her body writhed in pain. She was strong, stronger than anyone Clayton had ever known, but he could see it in her face. She was scared. "Just breathe," he whispered, wiping the sweat from her brow with a trembling hand. "It's not just the birth," she gasped. "She's different. She's fighting her way out. Too strong." Clayton glanced at the barn doors. The townsfolk were preparing, reinforcing the perimeter, armed with whatever they could find: axes, shotguns, even pitchforks. Against alien tech, it would be a miracle if they held the line. But that didn't matter now. Only Lyri did. "I've got you," he whispered. "I won't let anything happen to either of you." And then she screamed, louder, sharper. The light around her body flared, casting shadows that danced like ghosts. Something ancient and powerful stirred within her. Outside, The town had become a war camp. Sheriff Daniels stood atop a rusted truck bed, barking orders. We hold until sunrise. I don't care if they come with fire or lightning, we stand. We fight. No one ran. No one wavered. Because by now, they understood, this wasn't just about an alien woman. It was about choice. About love. About who they were as people. The ship landed without a sound. No dust kicked up. No roar of engines. It simply touched down. A ripple rolled across the ground. Then they came. They were called Karzen. Leary had only ever described them in fragments, but seeing them 8 feet tall, skin like cracked obsidian, armor woven with light, it was clear they weren't here for negotiations. A dozen of them moved toward the barn. Sheriff Daniels raised his weapon. That's far enough. One of the Karzen spoke, its voice like stone grinding on stone. The traitor and the child. Deliver them, or perish. Daniels spat. Y'all are gonna have to do a hell of a lot more than threaten. The standoff broke in an instant. Blasts of energy lit up the sky. Townsfolk scattered, diving for cover. The ground shook. One of the barns exploded. But the people fought back. Molotovs. Gunfire. Homemade traps. And amidst it all, a cowboy named Clayton holding his own in the eye of the storm. Leary screamed again. The baby's head crowned, shimmering with a faint glow. Her body arched, and her hands gripped the hay-strewn floor. Then something changed. The light in her chest, where the child's energy had been building, burst out in a brilliant wave, flooding the barn in pure white. And in that moment, the world outside stilled. Every Karzen paused. Looked up. Some even stumbled. Because they felt her. The child. Not just a hybrid. A bridge. Clayton caught the baby as Leary collapsed backward, gasping. The child didn't cry. She glowed. Eyes wide open. Calm. And then, she reached out. Not with her hands, but with something deeper. All across the ranch, people paused mid-battle. Energy weapons froze. Screams turned to silence. A pulse of emotion, so deep and primal, swept through them all. Hope. One of the Karzen fell to his knees. Another dropped his weapon, staring at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. Clayton stepped out of the barn, baby in his arms. Leary followed, exhausted but alive. She did something, he whispered. Leary nodded weakly. She touched them. Showed them what I saw the moment I came to this world. The Karzen commander trembled. His armor flickered. This is not permitted, he said, but the words were hollow. Another warrior stepped forward. Female. Younger. She removed her helmet. Her face was weathered, but her eyes were wet. She is balance, the woman said softly. She is what we feared would end us. But perhaps, she is what could save us. The commander roared. You would betray our code. The female warrior looked to Leary. Then to the child. Then back to her leader. I would rewrite it. The standoff shattered. Weapons dropped. Others knelt. And for the first time, the threat passed not in blood but in surrender. That night, under a sky washed clean by fire and hope, Leary held her daughter in trembling arms. The townsfolk celebrated, cautiously. The Karzen, what remained of them, stood watch on the edges of the property, silent, uncertain, no longer conquerors. Clayton sat next to Leary in the hay, still coated in ash and sweat. What's her name? He asked. Leary looked down at the child, eyes glowing faintly. Seren. Means something. In my language, it means new sun. He smiled, pressing a kiss to both their foreheads. Fitting. But deep in space, far beyond Earth's light, a message was received. A child born of two worlds. A spark of unity, or rebellion. And others were watching. Not all of them kind. The battle was over. But the war had just begun. It was spring again when the world finally felt quiet. The ranch, once scarred by battle and lit by alien fire, had returned to something close to normal, though nothing would ever be quite the same again. The fields were green. The fences were mended. And at the heart of it all, a little girl named Seren took her first steps in the soft dirt, wobbling toward a cowboy's open arms. Clayton caught her, laughing as she clung to his shirt with glowing little fingers. "You're just like your mama," he said, grinning. "Strong. Stubborn. Always charging ahead." Liri stood in the doorway of the barn, watching them with a calm smile. She looked more human these days, by choice, not by necessity. The glow of her skin had softened, her eyes a little less alien. But her spirit, the thing Clayton had fallen in love with, was unchanged. "She's growing fast," Liri said, stepping into the sun. "She's got 2 worlds in her," Clayton replied. No way she was gonna grow slow. The Karzen had left weeks ago. Some returned to their world. Others, like the warrior who had stood up to her commander, stayed. Not as guards or watchers, but as guests. As learners. A quiet treaty had been formed not on paper, but in hearts and shared labor. They helped rebuild. Learned human ways. Taught Liri things she thought she'd lost forever. And through Seren, both sides found something rare, understanding. The child had power, yes. More than anyone understood. But she also had kindness, curiosity, laughter that rang through the air like music. She was a bridge. And bridges bring people together. One day, a new craft landed. Smaller. Civilian. Peaceful. Liri's sister stepped out, uncertain at first. Her skin shimmered a deeper blue, and her robes marked her as one of the old caste. She had never set foot on Earth until now. She held no weapon. Only a recording crystal. "I came to see if the stories were true," she said, her voice cool but not unkind. Liri nodded. "They are." Her sister knelt to greet Seren, and the child, without hesitation, offered a dandelion she'd picked. The alien woman stared at it, bewildered. Then took it. Something changed in her eyes. "They said you were lost," she whispered. Liri smiled. "I was. Until I found him." They built a school. Not the kind with desks and chalkboards, but one shaded by trees, filled with children from the town and a few from distant stars. There, stories were told. Cultures exchanged. Ideas shared. It wasn't perfect. There were arguments. Misunderstandings. But there was progress. Clayton taught them how to ride horses. Liri taught them how to fly. And Seren? She taught them how to listen. Years passed. The barn became a home. The scars faded. The town changed too. More tolerant. More open. It didn't happen overnight, and not everyone stayed. But those who did found something rare, a reason to believe in things bigger than themselves. Sometimes people would ask Clayton, sitting on that porch, how it all started. He'd smile and say, "She showed up under an oak tree. Lost. Quiet. Looking like the sky forgot her." And then he'd laugh. "And somehow, I was the lucky fool she decided to stay for." One evening, long after the stars had taken over the sky, Liri and Clayton lay under a blanket on the hill behind the house. Seren slept nearby, curled in a ball of soft grass and glowing dreams. "Do you miss your old world?" Clayton asked. Liri thought for a moment. "Sometimes. But then I remember my world ended the day I lost him. The day I fled. And this one?" She turned to him. "This one began the day I met you." In the end, their story wasn't about war, or aliens, or the miracle of hybrid birth. It was about what happens when love isn't bound by biology, when kindness outweighs fear, and when people choose to fight not because they hate what's in front of them, but because they love what's behind them. It was about second chances. About finding family where you least expect it. And about how sometimes, the most powerful force in the universe isn't fire or light or science, but a little girl handing a flower to a stranger. The stars kept moving. The galaxy kept spinning. But on a quiet little ranch in Texas, the universe found peace. And stayed a while.